All right, so that brings us to the events of December 1955, when Rosa Parks refuses to give up her seat on the bus when ordered to do so. This is going to be the incident that causes the Montgomery bus boycott to begin. Okay, so a little bit of context about all this, right? Of course, like everything in Montgomery, Alabama, and like everything in the South, the bus system was segregated. And this was by legal statute, by local city ordinance, that this was the case, right? And it's not just that there's segregation, it's that built into the whole thing, there is humiliation and an assault on one's dignity as a human being if you're a black person. So African American patrons had to come and pay in the bus in the front, get off, go into the back entrance and sit in the back. And if they were sitting too close to the front, if white people start to get on the bus, okay, the bus driver is going to yell. And the bus driver is always white. The company refuses to hire black people as drivers. The bus driver then, if a black person is sitting too close to the front and white people start to get on, will yell a racial hatred epithet, right? And tell the black patrons to go to the back of the bus in a very awful way, right? And so there's just cruelty within it, right? And we saw this, of course, with what was happening in Nazi Germany. It's cruelty is it's really obvious when you see it, right? And it was obvious in the way that black people were being treated on the buses in Montgomery, right? Okay, and of course it's just one element. I mean, the whole structure of their community in Montgomery, it's ingrained in it, right? All right. Now, Rosa Parks was not the first person to challenge segregation on the buses in Montgomery. Not at all. She herself had actually refused to give up her seat like 10 years before. So you don't want to think about the black community in Montgomery as being just completely passive and going along with the status quo. No, they did challenge it from time to time, even frequently, right? And when you challenge it, there's certain consequences. You're pulled off the bus by the police, you're fined, whatever. And of course, there's always the threat of escalating intimidation or escalating consequences on the part of white supremacists, retribution from white supremacists or whatever for challenging the status quo, right? All right, but Rosa Parks is not the first person to challenge it, not at all. But what's different this time is that it becomes kind of the spark for a wider movement of resistance and organization, okay? And there's going to be an effective mobilization of black communities throughout Montgomery to challenge segregation on the buses and to bring it to its, to crush it, essentially, right? So, of course, if someone gets pulled off the bus and arrested, right, it's going to come to the attention of the local NAACP leader, okay? And that man in Montgomery was E.D. Nixon, okay? And he looks at Rosa Parks and he says, here is a great person to be kind of the face of resistance to segregation in the South. Why? Because she's respectable. She's mannerly. She's orderly. She follows the laws. She's a nice lady. She is church-going. In other words, she's someone who is going to appeal to the mainstream white person in the North. And you need to bring attention to the horrific realities that black people face in the South. You need to bring attention to what's happening there. You need to bring that to the attention of the white people in the North if you're gonna make a bigger impact over the long term, right? Because you're gonna need the whole legal system to sort of change, and you're gonna need the federal government to start intervening to enforce the civil rights of black people in the South. Okay, so Rosa Parks is chosen because the idea is she's gonna be someone who can gain sympathy on the part of white people in the North. Now, so E.D. Nixon, he's going to start organizing a movement around protesting Rosa Parks' arrest because, of course, she's dragged off the bus by the police and charged and told to appear in court in a few weeks or whatever. Okay, so what Nixon does is he gets together with this lady, Joanne Robinson, and they start to create pamphlets that are going to protest Rosa Parks' arrest, and they're going to start calling on the black people of Montgomery to stop using the buses. Now, the people that use the buses the most in Montgomery are black people because they're more likely to be poor and they're much less likely to buy cars. So the buses rely on black patrons to make a profit, which is ironic, of course, given how much they dehumanize them, right? And so what Nixon and Robinson are saying is, look, you're going to have some sacrifices here. You might have to walk. You might have to try to organize carpools, and you might have to do this for a really long time, okay? But we have an opportunity here to challenge this evil system, and we have influence as consumers. We can choose not to give our money to this bus company, right? And we can make it hurt economically, and that can have a big impact, okay? So this is the case that Nixon and Robinson are going to make. And they start to go to the churches in the black communities. Because if there's anywhere that you're going to go to start mobilizing a wider movement, is to the churches. Because everybody's going to the churches on Sunday. And they're hearing, of course, not just sermons, but they're hearing from each other information about what's happening that's relevant to them as African Americans, as individuals in the neighborhoods and the communities, right? And the churches have always been kind of the heart of the communities, and they're the place where political activism has always been mobilized on a bigger scale. So it makes sense for Nixon and Robinson to go to the churches for organizing purposes. And they are going to encounter there at the one of the churches, Martin Luther King Jr., who's going to become the leader and the spokesman of this boycott, and who's going to rise to national and international renown because of his leadership here. So we'll deal with that in the next segment of lecture.